Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 57 of the Hardly Millennial podcast, where we are young, dumb, and full of
Opinions.
opinions, ladies and gentlemen. As always, my name is Adam.
I'm Matthew Lynn. How's everyone doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you.
I'm glad.
So, a couple quick things for you guys. We'll make an official announcement for it a little later, more than likely tomorrow, but all of our podcasts are now up on Google Play and iTunes.
iTunes, baby.
So if you're listening to this on YouTube and you're like, oh, I could be listening to it there, I'm going to go do that right now. You can absolutely do that now. You'll just search Hardly Millennial in either one and you will find us.
I mean, honestly, even if you love it on YouTube, you should just fact check us and go check it out on iTunes.
Yes.
Just make sure we're not lying to you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? You might as well click them and make sure they're real links.
Go check out the pudding and make sure the proof is in it.
Yeah.
So that's there. I also have one of my vlog videos up that I just released today. The part 2 of that particular one will be coming out later today as well. So you guys will have both of those to check out if you'd like. And just remember to share it, like, comment, subscribe, and all of that fun stuff. Matthew, what do you got for us today?
Well, I was doing a little morning reading. First of all, I'd like everyone to know I'm not quite on my A game today.
Okay.
Mostly I want you to know, Adam, I made a mistake in that I didn't prepare for this podcast correctly. I did not go to the bathroom before we started this podcast. And let's just say I have a little situation brewing up inside me. So, slightly distracted this morning, but we're going to power through it.
Well, just so you know, if at any point you need to excuse yourself for a second, I'm sure I can entertain the people for a couple minutes.
You would cover for me, bro?
I sure would, broski.
Oh, man, I appreciate you, dude. You know, honestly, I think it gives me inspiration. I think I'm going to push through. So I was doing a little morning reading here, and there's shit going on in the news today. I couldn't find anything cool.
Yeah.
But what I did find is apparently everyone else knows this except for me, but there's this island in Japan called Okinawa, and it is the place on Earth where humans live the longest, the most consistently.
Oh, yeah.
So it's called like the land of the immortals.
Yes.
So people live to be over 100 there regularly.
Yes.
Okay. And it was fascinating to me because everyone wants to live like a good life, good long life, right? So the thing that was really cool is that it's this like American reporter who went over there, right? And he spent like time over there trying to live the lifestyle they do.
Right.
And he was saying that these people aren't just like alive, they're living still. So they're actually walking around on their own. They're playing sports, playing games with each other. They make their own meals. They live alone. Like, it's not like what you would think a 97-year-old here would be doing in America.
Right.
It's totally different. They act like us in our 60s, you know, but they're in their 90s. And it all came down to, basically, there's 3 things going on that this reporter found that is making these people live so long. So the first 2, I'm probably going to butcher these pronunciations, but I'm going to go for it. So you have ikigai and moai.
Okay.
All right, I think. So ikigai would mean, it basically translates to a sense of purpose in life.
Okay.
So they're all about like waking up and being excited to do something that day, having a purpose.
Okay.
So they have tons of clubs, tons of activities with each other on this island. It's like retirement fucking heaven.
Gotcha.
Okay. And it's funny I actually said the word retirement because retirement, that concept does not exist in Japan. There is no word for retirement.
Yeah, they're all about work.
Well, you do something until the day that you're done. You always keep going. So you have that. You have this sense of purpose in life, and that keeps them going. And then you also have this, I want to say moai, M-O-A-I. And what that is that's your social group. So that's the clique that you belong to. That's your guild, if you will.
Okay.
So through this sense of purpose and this sense of belonging, put those 2 things together, you get these centennials, which are people who live to be more than a century, be 100 years. And then the last thing, the third thing, is a physical thing. It's their diet, which clearly helps a lot.
Right.
So simple things like They have another word that I'd have to look through and find it, but it's a concept that you stop eating when you're 80% full. So these people never eat until they're full. They always push the plate away while they're still a little bit hungry, little tiny bit.
Bet they're fasting too.
I bet they are. But they always feel satisfied, he says, because by the time you let the 20 minutes go by, your stomach tells your brain it's full and you feel satisfied.
Right.
You know, so you end up eating less. And when they do eat, they eat a huge variety of foods. So all of your plates will come in like these 6 different compartment boxes, and each box is maybe 2 or 3 bites, a small amount. But you have like one box will have a little bit of fish.
Yeah, bento
One box will have okay, yeah. So you know the idea of it. Yeah, that's how they eat. So they eat a huge array, but they only have like 2 or 3 bites of each thing.
Right.
You know, and through doing that, they get all of the nutrients and chemicals that their body needs.
Yeah, that's definitely bento boxes have always intrigued me because of that. You know, it's like
I'd never heard of them.
They're very weird. Like so there's like this whole little subculture in Japan of like bento boxes, kind of like how veganism and stuff is here.
Okay.
Where people will take these bento boxes and they'll make them look super pretty. Like they'll make little pictures out of the rice balls and things like that. Like do things like that. But the whole purpose of it is just as you said, to make sure you're getting a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, I mean, not only do we Americans just struggle with diet in general, but I mean, we've talked about this before. When you go on a diet, a lot of people get stuck on, oh, well, I found this meal that I really like that is, it goes along with that diet. So I'm just going to eat this all the time.
Only that.
And then you don't realize, okay, well, you're missing so much shit out of your diet now.
It tears people up.
Yes.
You get a lot of inflammation from it, a lot of nasty stuff.
Well, it's unfortunate because then it makes these people go, oh, well, this diet doesn't work. It's like, no, the diet does work. You just follow it halfway.
And a lot of these diets that are supposed to give really great results really quickly, they're not sustainable.
Yeah.
There's a reason that they're quick diets. It's because you put your body through trauma almost. You shock the fuck out of your body, lose a bunch of weight, and then you're not supposed to do it again for a while. It's a quick fix, not a permanent solution.
Right.
You know what I mean? But, and the article was also saying that it's not totally our faults. I mean, it is. We created this world we live in, but we have a very finish your plate culture here, where if you don't eat everything on your plate, you're rude.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's rude not to finish because we consider ourselves so high above everyone else that we always think about, oh, well, there's people in the world who don't get to eat. So why should the richest country in the world waste food, right? We get that complex. Like, we're so much better than everyone, we have to finish all our food, right? Well, in Japan, it's totally not rude. If you make every meal assuming that you are going to waste 20% of that meal, and it's totally okay. It would almost be ruder. You'd be gluttonous if you ate the entire thing.
Right.
It'd be like, whoa, you don't have any self-control. You can't wait until the next one. Like, you would be put down for finishing all of your food.
Right.
Where here, it's people across the world go hungry at night. So you have to be unhealthy and eat all of this garbage. You know? So it does have a lot to do with the culture that we grew up in.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing, too.
Yeah, Japan's an interesting place. They also believe in working until exhaustion.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a lot of cases of, like, people will be on the subways or whatnot, and they'll be, dead asleep just because, they worked hard, and people respect that.
Yeah.
They go, oh, look at this guy who worked until he fell asleep. What a good guy. It's
just a different set of training since you were a little kid. You look up to different things.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of their jobs over there, I mean, not saying that they don't have the jobs like McDonald's or fast food or customer service, but it's like everything I feel comes down to almost like an art over there, right?
I was going to say, I guarantee you the McDonald's is higher standard than ours.
Yes, exactly.
Guarantee you.
Like everything over there is associated with a subculture. And I mean, and you could argue that here too, I guess a little bit, but I mean, for example, if for here, you might get like maybe a tiny there's like a more of an umbrella. So you have a subculture of fast food workers, right? So somebody who works at Wendy's can relate to somebody who works at McDonald's, can relate to somebody who works at Burger King, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like in Japan, and this is complete ignorance, by the way, guys, I'm just speaking out of my ass.
Best kind of knowledge.
But but I feel like in Japan, it's just as you said, it's higher standards. So if you work for like McDonald's, there's a subculture of, you work for McDonald's, and I feel like there's almost a sense of being proud of who you work for. Whereas like then there's a separate one for this and a separate one for that. But
yeah, I mean, respect's a big deal over there, right?
Honor,
about respect. They're all about. Don't they not even? Don't they not have curse words or something like that? Isn't there? Or they don't have like insults or something?
No, they definitely have curse words and insults just like anywhere, but they're very big about formalities. So it's like there's some. I'm trying to think of the way to say this. So like, whereas we will use like he, right? It doesn't matter if it's a baby that's a boy or a toddler or a teenager, an adult or an old person, right? You always if it's a boy, you always refer to it as he. And at least,
I was going to say, up until recently, you're right.
At least up until recently, yes.
I don't know anymore.
So, whereas I know in Japan, they have different names for like different levels of your life or like who you are, so and I believe it's at the end, so people will hear it in animes all the time. It's not Goku, it's Goku-san, right?
Goku-san,
and then there's different endings like that depending on where you are in the hierarchy, how close you are to that person.
It's funny you bring that particular one up because so my mother, I commonly refer to as Mama-san, all right? But for no good reason, guys. I started doing this as a teenager, and it's just a thing I do. And I was working at a coffee shop one time, and my mom came in. I was like, oh, Mama-san. And the person was really confused and, like, looked at me and was like, came up and asked and said, are you Japanese? Is your mom from Japan? What?
Oh my!
You don't look like it, but like, am I missing something? And I was like, no. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, we're French, dude. We're like 100% French right off the boat. And he was like, well, you called your Mama-san, and that's a term of endearment or some shit or whatever over there. I don't know exactly what to call it.
Yeah.
I was like, no, dude. I just made that up as a teenager. I didn't even know that they do that over there.
See, that's funny because when I first met you and I first heard you refer to your mom as Mama-san, that was the first thing my mind came to also.
Really?
Yeah, like I didn't think you were Japanese or anything. I just thought like, oh, maybe he likes anime,
Maybe he just loves the culture or something.
Yeah, this is something he called his mom.
Not at all.
Just something random you came up with.
Totally random. And what's really ironic is that when I was younger, I was really turned off by Far East culture, like any kind of Asian culture or the music or the showmanship, anything about it.
Right.
It just wasn't my favorite. I didn't really enjoy. I would never decorate my room with beautiful Asian art and stuff like. You know what I mean? It wasn't my thing at that time. More so as I'm getting older, it is. I really appreciate it now.
Right.
But when I was younger, I did not. But yet, I still ended up calling my mom Mama-san, which was just ironic.
Right.
I don't know. You know what I mean?
No, I totally feel you.
As I've gotten older, though, I have educated myself a little bit on more of the culture. And actually, it is a fucking beautiful, beautiful area of the world, dude. The Far East, it's totally different than anywhere else, man. It's really cool, actually.
It's funny. It's like I can't really even say like how to describe that kind of the only way I can like describe like Japanese climate really is just like 4 seasons climate, right? Like all of them definitely gets all 4 seasons.
Does it snow in Japan? I want to say it snows in Japan.
Yeah, I think like more up north that you get.
Clearly.
But
I feel like you could say that about anywhere on the planet.
Well,
like, more up north it snows.
Well, the reason I say that specifically with Japan is because Japan is the island in general is closer to the equator. So like where if you I'm pretty sure it is. So like
I feel like it's pretty far north.
So do you think so?
Yeah.
I feel like it's farther down, but
I feel like
if it is, then it definitely fucking snows.
Because North Africa is the equator. Like North Africa. Like
Is
that,
that
like
the
the top of
I
Africa would
guess
be
that
where the
is
equator
lower then.
is.
Yeah.
So it's up more. It's closer to the North Pole than it is the equator, I think.
Oh, okay.
I'm imagining it in
Oh,
my
then
head.
I mean, then it definitely snows.
I think I think it gets cold as fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there should be. Yeah,
Because right
that
next door is
definitely
Russia,
snows.
bro. If you
Yeah,
just like
true.
if you go to the top of Japan and you swim across to the that's Russia.
For some
that's
reason,
Siberia.
for some reason, I kept thinking it was lower down, like more like where Hawaii is, like
Oh, I
closer
feel
in
you.
that
I feel
area.
you.
Like if
Nah,
you
it's
just go
definitely
straight over
north.
from Hawaii.
Yeah, it's up.
Oh well, then it definitely snows. I bet it looks beautiful
Yeah.
there when it snows. I bet it looks more beautiful
gosh.
there when it snows than it does anywhere else in the world. I bet they actually get white, fluffy snow, whereas like here in Europe, you get that like dirty snow.
And they don't really have flat land there. Everything's hilly. And
Yeah.
so it would just like rest on the hill. It would be. I'm gonna have to look up pictures of it.
Yeah, I really want to go to Japan one day.
Oh man, it's so expensive. It's such
I
an expensive
know.
vacation, dude.
It's been on my bucket list though for years and years and years.
It's not fair because so many places in the world you can go there and they're these beautiful, amazing places, and you can literally take like a couple hundred American dollars and have a few thousand of wherever you are's dollars, right? Like
Yes.
our money is so strong here. Not with Japan.
Nope.
Nope. You're a broke ass in Japan, dude. It's expensive there. They got
Yeah.
their economy is great, apparently. Their money is solid.
Well, and what's super fascinating with Japan also compared to some of these other places that you can visit is it's one of the westernized countries of the world, right? And
Yes.
most of the countries
Particularly of Asia.
Yes, exactly. But so that's my point. Usually, any other westernized countries that you go to, like Europe, for an example,
Yeah.
like you're not saying that Europe doesn't have their own culture, but if
Right.
you're from America and then you go over to Europe, you're gonna fare pretty well and figure
You're
it
going to
out.
recognize a lot of things. You're going to recognize
Right.
castles and wall and a lot of the tools that were used back then.
Yeah.
You're going to just recognize the culture.
Whereas, like, you have Japan, which is a westernized culture, but they still do things way different
Tradition
than
is
how
huge
America
there.
does things. So you get
Yes.
to experience this kind of culture that you don't get anywhere else, where it's literally this westernized Asian culture.
Dude, they still have an emperor. Who actually is the emperor? It's not like the Queen of England,
Right.
okay? They still have a queen, but she doesn't do. No, the emperor is the man, dude. He's emperor for life,
Yeah.
and he's like a god. Like they don't even talk about him like dying and stuff because they just assume it will happen, but we're not going to talk about it. He's a god while he's here. So to the point, dude, it's so important to them that when General MacArthur was there after World War II, I'm pretty sure it was MacArthur. Could be saying that wrong. He, when he was occupying the island of Japan, he put up his headquarters outside of the emperor's temple because no Westerner, no white person, was to ever set foot in the temple. It was sacred. So he had he could have pushed him out of the way and said, "I'm
Right,
setting up
right.
in the temple," but he knew it would offend the people so badly that he actually set up his little headquarters camp outside the temple and never went inside of it. Yeah, just kind of little famous little tidbit that he did.
Japan's crazy, man. I really want to go there when the cherry. Oh, funny story about Japan. So here's some funny things that they do.
Oh boy.
And so I thought this was fake until I saw videos of it actually happening. So I read once that because they're so crowded and the population so dense in some areas of Japan,
Yeah.
that when people get on the subway, not everybody's able to fit on the subway. So there has to be somebody who goes and pushes the group of people into the subway
I've
so that
heard
they
of
can
that.
close the door.
Like the actual train.
The actual
they will
train,
like
yeah.
shove them into the train.
Yes.
And then close the door behind them.
Yes.
That's real.
And yeah, that's real. So
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
something I read also, and then all of a sudden videos started to pop up of it. And I was like, and yeah, there's literally this guy that was wearing, looked like he worked for, the subway. And yeah, there would be people who'd gather in there, and then he'd spend a good 5 minutes just like pushing his back up against the people to
And these
try to
people
shove
aren't
them
offended.
into the train.
They're like, I
it's
gotta get on the train,
just
man.
the way it is. Yeah.
Wow.
Just the way it is over there. So like that's what I mean though. Like there's shit like that
Crazy.
that happens where it's like if you do that kind of shit here,
Dude, if you accidentally bump someone in the subway here,
could
you might get
fucking
into
get
a
hit.
fight.
Yeah.
Like people are not the friendliest.
where everybody there just seems like, let's fucking work, I mean, not saying there's not lazy people in Japan, but just the culture in general is like work your ass off.
I think you would definitely be outcasted if you were like lazy in Japan.
Oh yeah. I mean,
would.
you'd have to be. But I don't know, dude. It's a crazy place. I've done like every report I've ever had to do for school in Japan.
Oh, see, I spent so much of my life so away from Asian culture that I never researched it. I never watched any of the entertainment about it.
Oh.
So now, like, I didn't even discover Japanese culture and what is until I was like 25 years old, dude.
Right.
It's only been like a year or two that I've known it. So I'm getting to learn all these things, and like I just saw the cherry blossom trees like in a video for the first time last year, and I was like, holy shit, this is incredible. And of course, at 26 years old, when you're telling this to your friends, they're going, duh, like where the fuck have you been for the last 20
Right.
years? We love this stuff. And it's just so new to me. I get to kind of experience it for the first time. And it's incredible. I can't imagine when you get onto the mainland and you start sneaking around there and looking into stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I hear Korea has a really rich culture and history.
Well, what's funny about South Korea, so they do have a rich culture, but they really like Americans in South Korea. So they're always plastic surgery is something that's really popular in South Korea.
I've heard things like this, yes.
So they literally go above and beyond to try to look more white.
Like
Get
the
bigger
facial
eyes.
structure of
Yeah,
ours.
facial structure, bigger eyes,
mouth.
blonde hair, bigger mouth, bigger lips.
They'll change their cheek structure to be more elongated.
Boob jobs, like everything.
So, and that's just because in general, most of the people who live there are just enamored with our culture. They just really like it.
Yeah, I think that's literally exactly what it is.
That's
yeah.
kind of amazing. Like, what an honor, honestly, that there's millions of people who want to be just like us.
Oh yeah,
That's pretty cool.
They love Americans too. When you go over there, I've known a few people who have gone to there's like these like teach English over there programs that you can do in some of these countries, and South Korea is one of them. And yeah,
cool.
if you're American, they fucking love you. You're instantly popular.
So why do you think America, the country, wouldn't want to jump on board with like helping places like Japan and South Korea out more? Like, you know how like England's our closest ally in the world, and like for good reason, we came from them and whatever,
Right.
But like, I don't know if you can answer it, but why do you think that like South Korea and Japan aren't like number one allies to us, like what we focus the most into?
Well, I think in the case of Japan, it's World War II.
You think there's still a little spice there?
Yes,
From, like,
absolutely. Well, the thing is, Japan's not allowed to have a military. So if they were given a military, I think they would have probably pushed back by now.
I think that very, very recent, like in the last year, has changed.
Has it? Do they
Well,
have a
I
military
think
now?
that they were saying, I remember reading something along the lines, and I'm going to misquote it in one way or another, that they were fighting to have a military again. They're saying it's time. And even America was like, okay, it's cool. I think it had to do with all the tensions with North Korea and China in the area.
Right.
We want to send them like some jets or some shit to help, but we can't legally send it to them because they have this thing. So we're like, okay, it's been long enough. You can have your military back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and to be fair, like I can't see if Japan does have their military back. I can't see them, actively like, all right, well, let's try this world domination thing again, guys.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either.
At least not for a very long time. But I think that's the deal with Japan. I think there's just this underlining animosity there between the two. I mean, we did drop 2 fucking nukes.
No animosity with Germany, but Germany never actually blew us up.
Well, but
Is that what you're saying? That Japan actually poked us?
yeah,
So we're a little mad at them.
Well, yeah, and just to the extent that Japan was willing to go, and the difference with Germany, and I think why we're cool with Germany, is because
Number one economy in Europe, dude. Just
Are they
saying.
really?
Number one.
Oh, cool
Yep.
shit. Well, the reason why I think we're so close with Germany, even regardless of what happened in World War II, is because the whole thing with World War II and the Holocaust was basically the entire country and a lot of Europe got caught up in a cult mentality, right? Now, I've seen a lot of documentaries about people who were part of cults and then left cults, and some of these cults had very outlandish views.
Yeah.
And these people would be talking back and saying, like, you would never think you're the one to get caught up in a cult.
Right.
And then it happens. In Germany right now, they kind of have that same kind of aftermath of like, we can't believe we got to a point to where we were, killing Jews and, doing all of this stuff.
Yeah,
So there's this big like, sorry guys, sorry. I had a pen pal from Germany that I talked to every now and then. And one thing she was telling me about when she comes to visit here that's very different about in Germany is we're very patriotic here, right? You'll see people have American flags in their car or in their yards. You'll see people with their trucks and they'll have an American flag.
America, baby.
You don't do that in Germany.
Oh, really?
You don't.
They're not very patriotic?
No, I mean, like I'm sure to an extent they are, but nobody's
not like us,
hanging a German flag in their yard or
Really?
anything. And the way that she was making it sound and when she was describing it to me is because there's kind of this like, well, we really fucked up, and German pride is almost associated with Nazism because
that's a shame.
because that's where Nazism came from, was this extreme, Hitler's extreme German pride. So, but to answer your question in regards to why we're closer to Germany as opposed to Japan, I think that's why Germany's like, sorry guys, where Japan's like fucking we'll do it again.
So on the note of outlandish, crazy leaders of random countries, I also read another pretty interesting thing yesterday morning. That was so. Are you at all familiar with the? I believe he's the president of the Philippines.
Just from what you've told me.
Just from what I told you, nothing other than that.
Yeah, nothing else.
So he's something like Duarte or what I think his last name is Duarte. Okay, it's what it looks like to me. I might be mispronouncing it. But he came into power, and I really want to say he was voted into power. I think he's the president, Adam. I don't think he's like a dictator. Okay. I think they voted this guy in. So one of the first things he did is the Philippines had a really bad drug problem, like really bad. Lots of drug dealers. It was a big deal. People were dying. So he came out and he said, well, to fix this issue, what I'm going to do is if you murder a drug dealer and you prove that they were a drug dealer, you're good to go. It's not against the law to murder drug dealers. You can openly open fire on them. You can kill drug dealers. Totally good. Right. Okay? And it worked.
Oh my God.
And the drugs went down. And it's not gone, but people are a lot quieter about being drug dealers now.
I'm sure, yeah.
So recently, I don't know if you know or if our viewers know, but China has had a lot of flack put upon it in the last year or so because it is playing around in the South China Sea right now with a bunch of islands. So China has created a few islands where they take barges and they pump sand from the ground of the ocean and they pump it into a big pile and they keep doing it until it comes up out of the water and they make an artificial island. So they've done this a couple of times. They've put landing strips for airplanes on it and military weapons. They've taken islands that are already there and put landing strips on them for airplanes and put military weapons. And the issue with a lot of these islands in the South China Sea is that the territory is officially claimed by multiple nations in the area. So you'll have, the Philippines and China and maybe like India who all are saying, we own this island. And as long as no one builds anything on the island or whatever, it doesn't really fucking matter who owns it, right? It's just an island.
Right.
But now China's out there and they're putting ships around it and they want to put troops on it and whatnot. So this Duarte guy said, okay, look, China, I'm sick of this shit. I know I can't beat you. I fully understand that. I know I cannot win in a battle. but I will suicide mission my army on you if you keep fucking with these islands. He literally told China in an open statement to the whole world. He said, I have military on the islands. I put them there. I know they won't win, but they'll fight if I tell them to. And I will suicide mission you if you keep fucking around. Yeah, this guy's off his fucking rocker, dude.
I feel like if China was smart, though, they would just be like, okay.
Oh, China's totally going to call his bluff. China's going to be like, fucking do it. Give us a reason. Give us a reason. Absolutely.
Well, not just that, but it's China's also like the second, he sends military over there to fuck with China, who will obviously not win. You know, now also you're just giving China like, okay, well, China can just go, all right, well, you declared war, so the Philippines are ours now.
That's totally what they're going to do. They would be like, America, they shot first. They attacked us. We're just playing with some ships.
Yeah.
It's like in Civilization, like that. We just watched this video the other day of anyone who's played the game Civilization knows that the AI in it's terrible.
Yeah.
So there are these guys who made this video about it, and they have him like standing there, and there's like a guy who's protecting a border, and another guy comes up in a different uniform, and he's like, well, what's the big deal? I'm just standing on the border. I'm just standing here.
Yep.
And then they're like, well, careful, because if you take another step, you're going to declare war. He's like, I'm just standing here. I'm just standing. And then he accidentally takes a step. He like falls or trips or something.
Right.
And he's like, oh, well, you declared war on me. And he like shoots him with an arrow, you know, and then invades his whole land. Like, just careful. You know what I mean? If you're going to play on the border of things, make sure that nothing falls on the other side, or else you're in someone else's land.
Well, that's the thing with this president for the Philippines. It's like, bro, you're not that big, man.
He's loco.
It's not gonna take
fucking loco.
anybody a long time to fuck with you. But
now, what if? I mean, the world is a pretty in-depth place, dude. So if you're the leader of this little bitty country, either you're a total psychopath and you're like, I'm willing to blow my whole country up to prove a point, right? Probably not. Or you know that you're backed by someone who is really strong.
Right.
Or a couple people who are strong enough to give you a chance, right? So who knows if America didn't call up the Philippines and say, hey, we need you to make this outlandish statement so the whole world can hear it.
Right.
And we promise there will always be a Philippines. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, but honestly, I feel like in the case of this, we'd probably be more on China's side than we would be on the Philippines side.
Well, we can't be. We can't be on China's side. Even like, you're right. I think morally and how we think as a culture, we would be more sympathetic towards the China side. But we've gone so far against China, dude. We can never team up with them. There would literally have to be a race of aliens that threatened the planet Earth, and then we might team up with them.
No. I'm not saying that we would team up with China, but I just mean if the Philippines decided to make a move, or if China, or if China decided to try to do something or whatnot, we would basically just tell the Philippines, like, you're on your own, guys. We're not going to fuck with China. Not right now, at least.
I mean, you're probably right. Yeah. It would be like Germany in the beginning of World War II, where they would take, Czechoslovakia, and we'd be like, oh, that was super naughty, but fucking don't do it again.
Yeah.
Okay? We'd probably be a situation like that. If China took the Philippines, I don't think the Philippines are part of NATO.
No, I don't think so.
I think we would be okay in being like, just have it, but stop it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because going to war with China is a world war. That's huge. That's a very, very big deal with a lot of deaths and a lot of destruction.
Yes.
So you're going to want to avoid that at any cost. But then you also have this issue where it was what led up to the Cold War, was that you had this huge, at that time it was communism against democracy, right? So you had this huge communist entity, the SSR, the USSR. No,
You're talking about Russia,
Russia, right?
USSR.
Yeah, USSR. Yeah, it broke apart into all these different countries, and then we said our mission is we cannot let those little countries fall back to communism.
Right.
So it's a possibility that you would get that kind of mindset where we would tell ourselves we can't let the few democratic Asian countries that are left fall to communism. Yeah. So, I don't know. It'd be a hell of a double-edged sword. Yeah. Do you let something like the Philippines go, which is kind of a big fucking deal, especially in the modern world?
Yeah.
Or do you get into a huge conflict that could go for who knows how long?
Well, and that's just it. But then, I mean, the question would come up if China did, do anything with the Philippines. The question will have to come up, well, is this another Germany situation where
dude.
it's going to start with the Philippines and is it going to continue on to something else at that point? Because I think China, just as you said, is one of those countries you're going to be super fucking hesitant.
Super
To
hesitant.
get involved with,
Yes.
know. The stuff with Germany, that was more so just us being like, that's your business.
Well, look how
type of
hesitant we were
thing.
there. It wasn't until
Yeah.
we were like, okay, the world is literally going to
until
fall
until
if we don't
were
do
attacked.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hitler was winning, bro.
Yeah.
Hitler was winning.
No, absolutely.
And when my dad used to tell this to me too when I was a kid, and I would ask him about World War II and things, well, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? Why did they make this decision? And he said, well, Matthew, when we were fighting World War II, we didn't know that we were going to win.
Right.
There was no guarantee that America and the Allies were going to win World War II.
I guess, yeah, you never think about it that way, especially back in that time.
Especially, there was no guarantee. Hitler was the more powerful side. We were the underdogs in the beginning. And in the beginning, we did not do very good.
Right.
We got our asses kicked. We landed on Africa with horses and got mowed down by the fucking machine guns. And we had to go back to the drawing board and figure shit out. Yeah, he says, you got to put yourself in that time period, dude. It was a mindset of live or die. Failure meant you didn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So failure is not an option. So you do whatever it takes to stay alive.
Yeah, I think people don't really, and I'm included in this, but I don't think people realize where we were as a country back in like the 40s, and earlier.
We just come out of the Great Depression.
Yeah,
we were fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. We weren't this, people look born today like us and anybody after us, they're born into this country that's basically known as just the heart of the world now, right?
Oh,
We're just this powerhouse.
We're the whole world put together plus some.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But in the 40s, we were just another country. We just happened to have freedoms that other countries didn't.
If anything, Germany was that hard. Germany was the powerhouse in those days.
Yeah.
They had the biggest everything. I mean, that's where people look back and see the posters of, who's the very famous lady who built the airplanes? She's not a real person, but she was that character
I know
that
what
got
you're
all the
talking
women
about,
together.
yeah.
So in World War II, all the guys had to go out and fight, but we still needed the factories to run to build airplanes and shit. So we put this mindset out very much on a whim. All of a sudden, it went from women stay at the house and cook and clean and raise the kids to women can do anything. They're empowered. Give them a hammer. Give them a welder. They can build airplanes.
Right.
And there was most of the equipment in World War II was manufactured by women in our country. That right there, people look back on it and go, oh, wow, we really banded together and look at all the rights we created for each other while we were beating the Nazis. And yeah. No, we did that because we didn't know we were going to win.
Yeah.
We needed fucking airplanes because they were getting shot out of the sky.
Yeah. I mean,
It was necessity.
Right. Well, and then you can look at the most basic example. We were so unsure if we were going to win or not that we had to do a fucking draft. We were like, let's just get as many fucking boots over
need
there
all
as
of them.
possible.
Dude, there was battles with 1 million people in them. The Battle of the Bulge had 1 million fucking people in it.
It's fucking crazy.
It's insanity. That would be the entire city of Phoenix.
Right.
From where we live all the way to the other side, all the way to Flagstaff. Okay?
Right.
Every human being from here to there in a single battle.
Jeez.
And 7 out of 10 of them die.
Right.
That's World War II, baby. That happened multiple times. It's fucking crazy.
My word. Yeah, so anything like that happening like these days, I mean, the powerhouse countries that you have now, like China and Russia, and I think those are really the only ones that I would guess I would consider powerhouse countries, is us, Russia, and China.
England. If you take away the whole Brexit little thing they're going through right now, in the grand scheme of things, they've always been a world power.
Yeah, so I mean, like
Spain
has
always been a world power.
I feel like none of us just want to fuck with each other. We just all know we're all gonna get our fucking asses handed to us. I mean, it's some way or another, right?
It's not in the best interest for anyone to be a conqueror anymore.
Exactly.
That's why you don't see it. You don't. So it does happen geopolitically. Countries do absorb other countries.
Yeah.
So in our lifetime, very recently, in the last few years, Russia annexed a place called Crimea, which everyone just thinks of as, oh, whatever. They just, they speak the same language now, whatever. No, Russia literally said, if you don't become part of Russia, we're going to put soldiers in your country and we're going to make you part of Russia.
Yeah.
We're annexing you. So to annex means to take over, to absorb into. So they didn't have a choice. They didn't they chose, technically on paper they chose, but it was an ultimatum choice. It was do this or die.
Yeah,
they tried to do it with the Ukraine, and finally America said no.
Yeah, no, stop it. People don't realize how often this happens in your lifetime. I mean, I think that one that happened in the world when we were younger in the early 2000s was Yugoslavia, I believe was the country.
Yugoslavia could be.
That there was...
It'd be in northern Greece, up geopolitically.
But I don't think there's a Yugoslavia anymore. There were a bunch of people who left because there was war and they were searching for religious freedom. There's actually a lot that came here. I know a couple people whose family came here after that whole bit. But that's another one. It's a country that's just not around anymore.
That was why we went to war with Saddam Hussein the first time. In the first Desert Storm, not the one that everyone knows about after 9/11, but the first time there was a whole entire war where we went to war with Iraq before 9/11, and that was because he invaded Kuwait. He said, "I'm going to take this," and we were like, "No, you're not." And Saddam Hussein, he had a 1 million man army. Did you know that? In the first
1 million man army, is that what you said?
And we beat them in 100 hours. Yeah, they all laid down and surrendered. So it's not about the size. It's about how well supplied and how well you can get information out. But he had 1 million dudes with rifles, and he said, I'm going to go take Kuwait. And we were like, nah, you can't do that. So countries do still try to do that.
Yeah.
But you just don't have these warmongering conquerors that take huge swaths of land.
Yes, true.
Not since World War II.
Yeah, and I don't even think being able doing something like that would even work anymore. Even if you did have some leader that popped up as a conqueror and was like, I want to do this, I feel like you'd have a lot of people just okay, calm down.
If Genghis Khan came around tomorrow,
yeah, exactly.
If he was born tomorrow, he wouldn't even be able to get people to follow him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People are like, I don't care if you're Alexander the Great. I'm good with where I live right now. What's the incentive? Why do we need to conquer Turkey?
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think that what you see now is the NATO is the groups, the alliances are a big deal. You have the European Union and you have Brexit where they're leaving. And so it's almost like these alliances, these formalities are kind of the countries. You know what I mean? And those break apart and fracture.
And I was going to say, you're seeing a lot of that breaking apart now too, the whole Brexit situation. And...
They're all treaties that go back 50, 60 years, almost 100 years ago to World War II. We're not the same world that we were back then. Right. We don't need the same treaties that we needed back then.
I do think that within the next, I would say maybe 50 to 100 years, we're going to see a major border shift. I guess I should say a worldwide border shift.
What you saw after World War I, where we really redrew them out, and countries that didn't exist now exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But I think it's not going to happen because of war. I think it's going to happen just because of, as you said, there's going to be a lot of these different alliances or treaties that were signed, 100 years ago that people are going to revisit and say, well, fuck this shit.
So kind of like how we draw lines in America for voting.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And those lines sometimes get redrawn every couple years to shift with how people moved around. Basically, we'd have a worldwide version of that.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to shift these a little to make people happier.
Yeah, but an actual change of country border. This is over here now. This is. I think you're going to see that here in America also.
I would say the world does a spring cleaning every couple hundred years.
Yeah, exactly.
And kind of rewrites the book. Because there is no actual border in the dirt on planet Earth anywhere.
Right.
It's all just concepts that humans make up so we can we can be more organized, so we can figure shit out. But like, just because Mother Nature, the Earth is a shifting thing, so mountains collapse into the middle of the Earth and then get shot back up as lava. Like our geography physically changes over time.
Yeah.
So just for that alone, I mean, it would make sense that you have to rewrite the borders every now and then, right?
Well, the whole thing with like the tectonic.
It takes a really, really long time.
Yeah,
I know, but it's happened within human history.
Yeah, true. But I think it's going to happen more so in the sense of like, so for example, I think within our lifetime, I think North and South Korea are just going to become Korea
Probably.
at one point. I think
agree with that.
I think that's going to happen. I think there's even going to be some changes to the United States border. In regards to, it could be anything from civil war to things like something stupid like California being like, we're going to secede. But
I think you're going to see China like an actual entity that calls itself China, like New China, in Africa.
Really?
I do. I think that you're going to get almost like so you can't call it colonization because all of the land of Africa is already lived on and already broken up. And there's no open land where you can colonize.
Right.
But you're essentially going to see a modern version of colonization in I don't know what the word's going to be and how they're going to do it, but there's a lot of raw mineral resources in Africa, and no other country really cares to go there and start to like take advantage of those resources. You know?
We really don't touch. Nobody really touches Africa.
It's too much trouble. It takes too much money, and honestly, when you build stuff there, people just come along and they fuck it up, and they turn it into a military base, and it's just so hard to keep your shit nice in Africa. So no companies want to go over there and build a nuclear power plant because it's going to get fucked up. You know what I mean? Well, China is willing to do that. China is very willing, not nuclear power plants, guys, but China is very willing to invest billions of dollars into Africa and extracting its natural resources.
Right.
They don't want a better life for African people. That is not what they're interested in. They are interested in subjugating Africans and taking their resources, okay, because they can make them wealthy, can make China very wealthy. So I think that simply because they're going to want an entity closer to home, closer to where they're building things, you're going to see one of the countries in Africa or something become a new China, I think.
Interesting.
Just a philosophy.
I mean, I could see it. I feel like something has to happen with Africa. I mean, simply just because of the fact that nothing happens there as far as like outside forces coming in. You never really have to worry about Africa coming out to fuck things up, or you never really have to worry about any countries going into Africa to fuck things up.
The countries that make up Africa now tend to be very focused on inner fighting with one another.
Yes.
And it may not be the actual governments of those countries, but there are groups within the countries who are powerful enough that they lead the fighting. There's a lot of militia things going on, a lot of, what do you call it when you try to kill out a whole group of people?
Genocide?
Genocides, that kind of stuff. A lot of very backwards progressional things happen on the continent of Africa, regardless of who lives there. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of like the uncharted territory of the world. It's
that's true.
But at a certain point, you would think that Europe and America would get so congested and so full of skyscrapers and factories and shit that they would just say, hey, here's all this open land. Let's go develop it.
Well, I could see more. What will happen with Africa is once the Middle East gets their shit together, and they start to have a more like well-defined, civilization and culture, not the shit show that most of it is right now.
A lot of inner fighting there.
Yeah, I think once that's all taken care of, I think because they're kind of in cahoots with like Saudi Arabia and Egypt also, which is in Africa. So I feel like that's going to kind of bleed out.
It's kind of an overlapping culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Because North Africa is not technically the Middle East,
But there's a lot of
it has a lot
culture
of Middle
there.
Eastern culture. Algeria, Yemen, Libya,
Right.
all that. There's a lot of Middle Eastern influence there.
Yes. So I think that's just going to start like maybe trickling down to the rest of Africa, and that's going to be kind of more so what happens. And assuming the Middle East ends up westernizing itself like most countries do anymore, then that's going to only trickle down more, because that's what just ends up happening. That culture just ends up engulfing everything else.
I think that so the Middle East is very wealthy. When they're not fighting, they are extracting lots of natural resources from their land, and shit grows really well there too. Believe it, for being such a deserty place, it's very rich soil in between the rivers. So they have a lot of wealth, the Middle East. So they're able to kind of get away with being a little more of a shit show and still being considered like countries, functioning parts of the world, because we need them. So because we need their resources, we're like, okay, we're going to make you part of the game here.
Yeah.
But nobody needs Africa for anything right now.
Right.
Okay. Not to say that there isn't some of the most rich natural resources there that we know of. But at this point today, no one needs Africa for anything.
Right.
So they're not a player in the world. They don't get given a ticket.
Yeah.
I think China is going to give them that ticket. China is going to make the continent of Africa a player in the world.
Interesting.
I personally think.
Well, only time will tell.
Dude, and the continent of Africa will love them for it.
Yeah.
If you lived in an impoverished nation and this huge the second largest economy in the world came over with representatives and said, hey, all of these huts you live in, we want to turn these all into houses, 2-story houses. We want to build a park there. We want to put a fucking Walmart here on the corner. By the way, here's a cell phone. Here's how to use this. You and all your friends get one now.
Right.
You'd be like, fuck yes, dude. I love China. China's the shit. You'd probably even fight for China if something happened, right?
Assuming they do it that way. Assuming they do it that way.
They're pretty smart, dude. China is not the second largest entity on Earth by accident.
Oh, they're super
they're
smart,
fucking smart.
but they're also super powerful.
They are.
So you're right. They could go in there and say like, "Oh, hey, here's all this nice stuff," or they could go in there and say, "Get out,"
True.
So only time will tell.
Only time will tell. And those are all theories too. I've read nothing that indicates any of that's going to happen.
I know,
no one has said that's going to happen.
I know very little about Africa and what
just
happens
my
in there, but
opinions.
And just opinions, guys. All right, I think that's a good place to end it. Adam does have a day job that he has to get to, but thank you so much for listening, guys. Remember, you can follow us on all the social media platforms. Remember to go check out both I and Matt's vlogs on the YouTube channel. Remember, too, we have a Patreon, www.patreon.com/hardlymillennial. We appreciate any donation you are willing to donate. Any final thoughts, Matthew?
I'm about to poop so hard.
Ooh.
I can't wait.
All right, well, let's let Matthew poop. Bye,
See you
guys.
guys tomorrow.